Hey Internet people, I'm back. This is another one where I'm just going to go through some news and recent stuff, mostly because I haven't filmed a proper review in a while. So this is some filler to give me more time to get motivated and do stuff that really shouldn't be as hard as I make it. But anyway, let's get started. The first thing is the Evercade, the little handheld dealy bob, and it has a bunch of games. And each of those game carts has a bunch of other games on it. I covered it a while ago. They just announced a new collection. Unfortunately, it's not the Gauntlet or Desert Strike collection that I have been pestering them for constantly, but it is still really cool. It is the Mega Cat Collection Volume 2. The game, of course, does already have a Volume 1, which is 10 different games from Mega Cat Studios. If that name sounds vaguely familiar at all, it's probably because you've heard of or played Coffee Crisis. But they actually have a slew of indie games, and the ones that weren't represented here are going to be on Volume 2. It's got a cool little shmup, puzzle game, and a bunch of platformers and puzzle platformers, and overall it just looks fun and colorful and like something that we should have. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about the Evercade. It is a handheld, which I hate, but it gives such good representation to just indie games and lesser-known kind of stuff. Between the Indie Heroes and the Pico and Mega Cat collections, and just even with the Oliver Twins collection, I know Dizzy was a bigger thing over in Europe, but didn't get a huge release and a lot of notoriety here in the US. Most of those games didn't even really come to the US. So it's good to see them bringing some of these games to light that didn't really get a lot of attention or any official releases. And I had more I was going to say there, but I forgot how words work kind of in like the middle of a sentence, so I guess I'm just going to move on. The next thing we're going to talk about is something I'm really excited about, and that was one of the games from the Nintendo Indie Direct whatever thing they did yesterday. And I'll talk about that whole thing in a bit, but the one that I'm really excited about is Getsu Fumaden. I think that's what it's called, right? Right? Yeah. See, I have notes. But yeah, it's a game from '87, so it's kind of old, and I'm only 2 years older than that. I'm so old. It came out on the Famicom, and that was it. It never came to the US, we didn't get it, but it was, supposedly, the inspiration for the utterly awful, fight me, it's awful, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on the NES. And honestly, it's a cool game. It has that same thing where you have different aspects of the game, like different viewpoints basically. Some levels or sections of it are top-down, some are side-scrolling kind of platformers. I really don't know how words work. I don't know what's happening right now. I think I have cancer in my brain or something. But yeah, it's just a really cool-looking platforming game, and now, 34 years later, we're getting a sequel, and it's coming on the Switch, and that's kind of exciting. The new one's going to be a roguelike, which, always a fan, and it's going to be in that same 8-bit style, which, again, always a fan. And really, I'm just excited to play it. And I really hope that it gets a physical edition, and I even more hope that in the physical edition, it also comes bundled with the original game, and that way we'll get a chance to play both of them. But also, and I'm not going to say more importantly because I am genuinely excited for this, but equally importantly, I'm excited for what this could mean. I mean, if the game does well and people are really excited, then maybe we can see Nintendo kind of revive other older games that were, popular back in the day or were successful, but just haven't really been seen a lot lately. Something like Kung Fu Heroes, or Demon Crest, or, I don't know, Nintendo, Kid f***ing Icarus. It would just be great to see these things come back and, get new entries. Whether they be in retro style, like this is doing, where it's mimicking the old 8-bit style, or something completely new and fresh and fully 3D and HD. Whatever direction, I just want to see old franchises that were successful and could be more, get the chance to be more. And now onto something utterly disappointing and annoying, Dungeons and Lasers. I don't know if I've mentioned them on here before because I didn't do my due diligence in talking about this now and review my old news videos, but basically, they were a Kickstarter that created 3D... Hold on. Yes, I do store all my crap right behind this couch. I bet you never knew that, huh? But now you do. The illusion's broken. Basically, Dungeons & Lasers is this. I did just hit myself in the face with that box. It's true. It is 3D world-building pieces for D&D or any tabletop RPG campaigns. It lets you create your dungeons and your rooms and everything with actual physical pieces. And that way, if you're one of the people that likes to use miniatures with your games, this gives you something to walk through with them. And it was a cool idea. However, they had a thing that happened where in the second edition of Dungeons & Lasers, and I should point out that in this first edition I spent like $300-400. In the second edition I spent nearly as much, so I've already given these people a lot of money. But in the second edition, one of the things they offered were usable doors. Usable doors. That's what they said. And in the picture, I'm going to put it up on the screen. So it's there. That picture. Whenever I do this, it's visible. I'm doing this very short. It's just going to be flashes. You won't be able to see it. But that is what they showed us. And they said, you're getting usable doors. And they open and close, and you can use them. Which sounds cool. However, there's a caveat to that. Apparently, in that video, or picture, it's not a video, it's a picture, you're supposed to interpret the fact that these usable doors are just doors, not doorways. So you can use the door, but only if you go and glue it to a doorway, and only if you happen to have that doorway. See, the way it works is, when you get a room, like this one for example, the Xenogenesis cell, it comes with a few doorways, and they're making doors that will fit these specific doorways. However, most of the rooms are optional. When you backed Dungeons & Lasers, you could pick which rooms or which assortment of rooms you wanted to get, but not every person picked every room. I know there's a few I didn't get because they were sci-fi based, and I'm not going to play a sci-fi RPG, I'm going to play a fantasy one. So if I were to get a door pack that had sci-fi doors in it, I can't use them now because those doors didn't come with doorways, and I don't have the doorways that they fit on. So the people that make Dungeons & Lasers, Archon Studios, or whatever they're called, decided that, oh hey, we kind of screwed up here, so we're going to fix it. And their fix is to give away online the blueprints to create the doorways on your own, with your own 3D printer, because, you know, every person has those lying around. Or alternatively, they have the third edition of Dungeons & Lasers coming out soon, and in this third edition, you can buy those doorways separately, not with doors pre-attached. You still have to glue them yourself, because apparently that's what we all want to do when we buy pre-made 3D stuff, is still put it all together ourselves. But you can buy these extra doorways with money as an add-on to the third campaign, which you also would then have to pledge money to. So basically they're saying, hey, we kind of lied to you and screwed you over, but if you just keep buying our products anyway, we'll give you the option to buy more product. So I don't know if you gathered from my tone or the sarcasm that I'm using, but that's horseshit. And yeah, that's all really. I mean, there's no story here. They're not resolving it further. They're not going to do the right thing and manufacture the doors already attached to doorways and send those out instead. That's what they should do. That's what any reasonable person would expect them to do, because why would you ever buy a door without a doorway? It's kind of a useless thing. It's not functional if it doesn't have a doorway to open and close on. It's just a slab of thing with a little hingy bit. But yeah, that's the story. Basically, just wanted to tell you that Archon Studios is crap, and you should not order the Dungeons & Lasers stuff if you haven't already. just avoid them. There are actually a bunch of people making 3D terrain for your tabletop RPGs, and I would recommend any of the other ones that aren't Archon Studio. In fact, let's get that crap right out of the shot. So yeah, now I'll move on. Okay, and I'm just going to keep this disappointment train rolling, and the next thing is cold storage on PS5. This is a thing that was talked about, I don't know when it was announced, but I heard about it recently, so I'm going to assume it was recent, because I don't think I'm that out of touch. But basically, the people at Sony, I almost said the people at PS5, but that's not a company, have decided that they're still not going to allow you to expand the storage on your console just yet. They have an expansion port that would allow you to do that, but for whatever reason, they don't want to enable it. My guess is they think people will use it to expand software hacks to their console, and they're right, that absolutely would happen. But it's kind of asinine anyway. But basically, the console only has a terabyte hard drive, and that's nothing. Like, that's absolutely useless. You can do nothing with that. Modern games, most modern games, especially the ones that are on the PS5, are going to be most likely between the 50 and 100 gigabyte range. And the OS itself takes up about a fifth of that hard drive. So, realistically, if you have 800 gigabytes to work with, maybe less if there's system updates or other, bloatware on the console that's already installed, and all your games are between 50 and 100, so let's say 75, you're going to fit 8 games? 7? Maybe 6 if they're all really high-end ones. And that's not even counting DLC or demos or trailers or videos if you're one of those people that rents videos through the PlayStation Store, which I know they removed now, but it was an option for a while. But basically, what I'm saying is you can't install anything. The console's garbage. I don't know from experience, I can't find one, no one can, but for the 12 people that do have them, you're only going to install a couple of your games and that's it. And this really sucks, more for the Xbox than the PlayStation, but in the world of backward compatibility, because theoretically you can bring the previous generation, or in the case of Microsoft, who surprisingly is doing something right, previous generations, you can bring those forward to your console. However, they don't give you any space to install them on. But the reason I'm talking about this and complaining about how stupid this planned obsolescence was is that Sony has introduced cold storage as a way to get around that. Basically, you can plug in older drives, your USB 3.0, SSDs or hard drives or whatever. Actually, it might be just SSDs. I don't know if it'll take regular, just platter-based drives. But either way, you can take your old drives, plug those in via USB 3.0, and you can move game installs onto that. However, if you do that, you can't play the games, because the console is expecting to read them at onboard SSD speeds, which it just won't read at via USB. So, you're moving your data over and not deleting it entirely, which I guess is somewhat of a time saver, but then you still have to move it back onto the console if you want to play that game, which means moving off something else that you filled that initial space with. So, you have to do a weird little juggling act now every time you want to play one of your games. And that's obnoxious as crap. I really don't know why both of the modern consoles, the Xbox and the PS5, I don't know why they didn't come with larger hard drives to start with. 1 terabyte is laughably useless. It's not enough space. It wasn't enough space in the previous generation. I actually have an 8 terabyte external on both my Xbox One and my PS4, and it barely does the job. I'm not doing any backward compatibility stuff on the Xbone because that would just fill the drive entirely, and I haven't done any digital download games on the PS4, A, because I don't like them, but also same reason I would run out of space. So it's just, it was not enough space then, it's certainly not enough now, and the solutions they have going forward, which is to say none, absolute crap. Actually, that's not fair. Xbox gave us one solution, that is to buy a single terabyte expansion, which doesn't make it that much better. It only gives you room for, 10 more games? If we're doing this, let me go big or go home. but it's made on exclusive hardware that you can only get through them, made by them, and it's over $200 for that single terabyte drive. To put that into perspective, if you want a USB 3.0 1 terabyte SSD to use on just like your PC or any other standard device, it'll cost you like $40 on Amazon, and you'll have it in 2 days. You can order them right now. I just ordered one not long ago. So 1 terabyte should not cost over $200. I know it's a slightly faster speed and different technology, blah, 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 but they have to do better. That's all. They have to do better. But the next thing I'll talk about is happier news again. The game Temtem is a game that I've had on my Steam wishlist for a while. Now, I haven't tried this game, so I can't speak to the game itself, but I've wanted to. It looked great. And what it is, for those of you that don't know, it's basically a Pokemon clone. But that's unfair because it appears to do a lot of stuff bigger and better than Pokemon ever did. Even more so when you compare it to Sword and Shield. Because Sword and Shield looks like it wanted to be what Temtem already was, and just failed at it. That is to say, it's like a big 3D-ish, not necessarily open world, but more exploratory game, where, you can catch all your wild creatures, Temtems, not Pokemon. If I slip and call them Pokemon, you know what I mean. And, it has the same kind of rock, paper, scissors attribute system where you want to play your different, your elemental specialties against each other. Water beats fire, fire beats leaf, whatever. And it has a lot of the same elements, but it looks different and unique and fun. And the reason I'm talking about it is because they just recently announced an expansion called Sipanku Isle. I looked it up and I probably said that wrong anyway. Basically, it's a new expansion that's going to bring a whole new landmass, a new attribute, digital, which, when I say attribute, I mean, like creature type, like fire, water, rock, whatever. And it's going to bring in what looks like raids. So there's some now mythical Temtems that you can have these longer raid battles against and catch them. They're presumably going to be more powerful. Also, one of the things it's introducing is fast travel, which apparently is one of the most frequently requested features in the game, or features that wasn't in the game, I guess. And basically, it just seems like an overall large just expansion. It's just building onto the game, it's adding a lot more and expanding it, and it just sounds great. So, for any of you that are like me and have not played it yet, if you want to, now might be the time, because they're going to add a crap ton to it. And at the very least, if you're someone that's already played Sword and Shield, just know that this is better than that by default. I mean, everything is. So this certainly will be. So yay! Okay, so now I will talk about the Nintendo Indie Direct. I don't know what it was called. Indie Showcase, I think? Something. The Nintendo thing with all the indie games, even though a bunch of them weren't. Basically, it looks really cool. They've got a lot of great stuff coming. Granted, a lot of them, or at least some of them, are just reprints from other consoles, or even console generations. Fez, for example, came out a while ago. That was on the 360, I believe, wasn't it? So that's 2 generations ago, and that's coming back, which, it's a cool game. It's fine. I'm glad to see it. It's just surprised that that would be one of the things you're going to, work into this big announcement, because we've all played Fez. But anyway, Fez is coming. Oxenfree 2, which actually looks pretty cool. There was a lot of cool stuff announced. One I was really surprised about was the House of the Dead remaster, remake thing. Just because I wasn't expecting to see that. I mean, it looks exciting, and I'll most certainly buy it. I'm just surprised. Also, I really don't think Nintendo knows what indie means, because Sega, who makes House of the Dead, not really an indie company. For that matter, Konami, who made the Gitsu Fumaden game, also not indie, but some of the other games were, and they look exciting. I think Nintendo is doing a good job of embracing the smaller indie companies. Mostly, I think, because it lets them pad out their game library and announce new stuff all the time, whereas Xbox and Sony announce new games practically never because, I don't know, they think consoles sell themselves with just 4 games and nothing else. But there's cool games like Beasts of Maravilla coming, which actually caught my eye and looks really cool. And also Ender Lilies and Skull the Hero Slayer. Yeah, those look really fun too. And a lot of the other games looked alright. The Ali Ali one looked kind of interesting. I'm not 100%, but I'll at least wait and see more. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there I'm definitely going to pick up. And if you didn't see the showcase, there's any million of sites out there now that you can go and find the whole lineup of games and view the trailers yourself. But there's some interesting stuff there. So if you're a Switch owner, keep your eyes open because there's probably going to be a bunch of crap you want to buy in the future. And if you're someone that follows limited run games, I'm sure you're going to see a bunch of these games show up. And I, for one, look forward to that because there's a bunch of them I want to buy. And the last thing I'll mention is Story of Seasons is getting an expansion pack. Now, I do play a lot of Metroidvanias, and platformers, and RPGs, and even the occasional fighter or shooter. So I usually do slightly more fast-paced games. I won't do like the online shooters or just some of the really rapid, ridiculous stuff, but I do like faster, exciting games. However, every once in a while, I embrace my inner girl, and I know that's sexist. I'm kidding, relax. And I will play just, a farming sim, basically. Not actually farming simulator, that looks awful. But I'm a big fan of Harvest Moon, and Rune Factory, and of course Story of Seasons, which brings me back to my point. Story of Seasons is getting an expansion pass. And while I'm still on the fence about how season passes or expansion passes or whatever you want to call them, how they seem to be being rolled out for every game now, and how that's appeared to have become the standard expectation of games, is that, hey, we'll give you a base game, and over time we'll add more stuff and you'll pay for it. I don't know. I go back and forth with how I feel about that. Sometimes it's warranted. If people are doing a lot of development on a game, they should get more money for it. You're building the game out significantly. You're adding a lot of stuff. However, I think there are other times where people kind of do the bare minimum to expand the game and charge like it's a full expansion. Or they set up ways to where it looks like they're building out the game, but a lot of what they're doing was already planned or at least partially done before the game even came out. So it just feels disingenuous. But that's way off topic. This one feels like a really good, really big expansion. And actually, it's 3 expansions. See the little expansion pass, season pass, I'm just going to call it season pass. The season pass here comes with, I think, 5 different stages overall that will release at whatever time intervals. I don't know. I honestly should do more research before I do these videos. But throughout those, you will get 3 new areas, a bunch of expanded story like quests and just things to happen. You get a bunch of new people that you can encounter from previous Story of Season games, several of which will be new marryable people. Basically, you just get a large amount of new content for the game. And that's pretty exciting. Again, I know these kind of games aren't for everyone. It's similar to like Animal Crossing. While I did play it, and while most of the world did, it's not necessarily everybody's type of game. So Story of Seasons probably won't be either. But if that is your kind of game, if you like colorful little people and friendly animals and farms, you can just... I know I'm making it sound so dumb, but it is fun. It really is. Give it a shot if you haven't played it. But basically, if you like that, there's going to be a whole lot more of it. So that's a thing, and buy it or don't. I don't know. I'm not here to sell you on anything. But yeah, it just looks fun and cool. It's a pretty big expansion of the game. It looks like they've done a sizable amount of work, like a Stardew Valley update amount of work, which those people, that's how you do a season pass. And they don't even charge for it. They just overhaul the game and add all the content and say, all right, here you go. Here's a million new things to check out. Enjoy that. Or No Man's Sky, they're another one. They really between launch and now, they've had like 5 or 6 sizable updates. But I'm off topic. Story of Seasons, new stuff, cool. Yeah, that's, I think, where this is going to end, because I've run out of stuff on my list here. You can't see it, but I'm at the end. And also, I'm starting to go on weird tangents and whatnot. So before I just ramble for all eternity, I'm going to go. Okay, bye.